Welcome to the Last Reviewer podcast. Today we've got Eamon Ward and Chris Jarvis, myself, and joining us for our special guest is Josiah Roche, the CEO of Game Shark Reviews.
Game Shark Reviews is a site that we both write for as well, so if you ever want to get our opinions on games as opposed to film, you're more than welcome to check them out there. Now, we've just gotten back from seeing Spider-Man Homecoming. That is, I imagine it's going to be the biggest Marvel movie of the year. Probably the biggest superhero movie of the year. One of the biggest movies of the year. Its only real competition in terms of money-making potential is Star Wars. And that is always going to be competition in regards to money-making potential.
Yeah.
Now, have you seen any of the other... Because I know you haven't seen this one, Josiah, but have you seen any of the other Spider-Man movies?
The most recent one was when they replaced the... it was after the third one. And they came out with that new Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man. That's the last one I've seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And did you see Captain America Civil War?
Civil War, is that the second one?
It's the one with Spider-Man in it.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that
so
one.
it's
that was pretty cool. Yeah, I know the Spider-Man you're talking about.
Yeah, same Spider-Man. Continuation from that. But yeah, it was alright. I think Chris enjoyed it more than me. He's a big Spider-Man fan.
Yeah, it was nice to see some real good Spider-Man action on the screen.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it is probably the best cinematic incarnation of Spider-Man in terms of the character. I prefer the original Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock. I still think that's one of the greatest cinematic villains ever put to screen. Alfred Molina does a great job in that movie.
With the Octo dude in it.
Yeah.
That was a great movie.
That character really lends himself to cinema.
Yeah. That scene where he breaks out of the hospital, I watched that again the other day, and that is ripped straight out of a horror movie. But let's talk about the new one, because that's a bit more relevant. I think, I'm not going to say I'm not a fan of the superhero movies, because, I do go and see them, and most of the time I find myself enjoying them. But I feel kind of like they do a lot of things the same, and in particularly for the Marvel ones, and this probably comes as a surprise to no one. The villain is, he's not bad for a Marvel villain, which means he's pretty rubbish for a normal villain.
Yeah. So I think the best Marvel villain we've had so far was Ego in the other month's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Definitely.
Played by Kurt Russell, of course.
I feel like it's a combination of Kurt Russell and the fact that... Have you seen Guardians 2, Jay?
I haven't seen 2. I've been looking forward to it, but I haven't had time yet.
Well, there's a little bit of a spoiler here, so you may want to block your ears.
Nah, go right ahead.
Okay, and this is just a warning for everybody else. There's a little bit of a spoiler here as well. Although the movie's been out for like 4 months now, so
it's fair enough.
Yeah. So Kurt Russell plays Ego, who is of course Star-Lord's father, and it is revealed in like the partway through the third act of the film that he is in fact the villain of this film. And I found rather than his villainous qualities were not overly villainous. He just kind of throws energy around and turns into a big rock monster at one point, doesn't he? They have a big rock monster fight. It's a bit weird. But it's that turn from being a perceived good character to becoming a villain that made him stand out more rather than just being a villain throughout the whole thing. And we have another spoiler for Spider-Man, which is not really a spoiler at all, because it holds no bearing on the plot.
Yeah, which was a bit of a weird...
a weird choice.
Weird. Yeah.
And it turns out, so the main villain of this new Spider-Man film is Adrian Toomes,
the Vulture.
better known as the Vulture, played by
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. Batman. He's playing a Birdman again. What a surprise. He does a really great job. The man's a great actor. I feel like in terms of, he looks like the Vulture suit is very cool. It's like this... almost like a fighter pilot helmet with like the bomber jacket.
The bomber jacket is taken straight out of the comics, but that's the only part of the look. And I was really worried about that because these days in superhero movies, every villain is a mechanical version of what it originally was.
Yeah.
But it turned out just fantastically. It worked well. There was a bit of a goblin glider section in there, but beyond that, I mean, it all
I
worked.
feel like that was almost an homage to the original.
Yeah.
Without going too far into what happened there.
Yeah, he might as well as have backflipped over it with a side on.
Yeah. I mean, it lends itself to some great imagery. Like, there's scenes of him perching up on a billboard with these great big mechanical wings hanging down. He looks very menacing.
Anyway, the point of
but
of
the
this...
point is, he turns out to be... so Peter's in love with this girl called Liz Allen, who is apparently a character from the comics, I'm now being told. And the villain is her father. And this is one scene that it's revealed literally within, like, the last 20 minutes of the movie?
Yeah.
Which has no bearing on anything whatsoever. It's just like, let's introduce conflict for conflict's sake, despite the fact that they already had plenty of conflict. I mean, I feel like that's one of the big problems with movies these days, is they feel like they need to put a twist in to surprise people. But it was a twist. And it was a surprise. I don't think anybody was expecting it to happen.
No.
I mean, props to them for that. But at the same time, a twist needs to have a reason.
Well, I would say that it allowed Adrian and Peter Parker to talk. It allowed the interactions that followed, which really drove the plot.
Yeah.
And it drove...
But I feel like it was so far through the film that if it happened earlier, or like we didn't know that, I feel like it could have been handled better if it began earlier. Say, the Vulture knew Peter was going out with his daughter, but he didn't know that he was Spider-Man or something like that. Spider-Man knew that the Vulture was her father. I feel like it would lead more towards character stuff rather than just having Michael Keaton intimidate Spider-Man.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but I guess we're crossing right over into Norman Osborn territory from the first film.
Yes,
where,
for sure.
I think he went into Peter Parker's room at one point, and he was getting changed out of his Spider-Man gear, and so he was on the roof, and the blood dripped down, and he looked up, but then Spider-Man was gone. It was a cool sequence, but we don't really want to repeat all of that stuff.
And I think that was refreshing, is they didn't repeat a lot of the stuff. For the most part, they had some nice homages and things. What they did repeat was the visual effects of Spider-Man swinging around and climbing up things. This movie will not be remembered for its effects.
No,
except for the Vulture. I feel like feels like they spent their effects budget on him, and then they got the team who did Tobey Maguire.
And some of the suit stuff. Like when his suit is playing up and his eyes are boggling at the kids to horrify them, which was in the trailers, of course, as every good bit is in modern
pretty much
superhero movies.
But yeah, no, it was not a bad movie. I feel like, again, and I feel like it's just a thing with these superheroes. It's not really it's not an origin story, which is very good.
Yeah.
Like they touch on him being bitten by a spider, I think, in one scene, and it's like 3 lines, and I feel like they handled that very well, because we've seen Spider-Man's origin so many times now that, we already know it.
And this was, in fact, a different version, so you don't have the classic Harry Osborn friendship, which is nice, because we've seen it a million times in cartoons, in comics, in movies.
Speaking of friendships, that guy he's with, the fat kid, they're great.
Ned Leeds.
That chemistry between them is excellent.
Yeah, and it's interesting to actually see Ned Leeds in a movie.
Is he a comic book character as well?
Of course, yeah.
Of course.
So Ned Leeds eventually marries Betty Brand, who was one of the reporters in the school's local news thing. And so
she was in it as well.
Yes. So when I saw Betty Brand on the screen, I was like, oh, that's really exciting. Hang on, why is she a kid? And then I remembered everyone's younger.
Because this is really the only Spider-Man movie where they actually look their age.
Yeah. So Betty Brant was one of Spider-Man's first real love interest in the comics. She worked for the Daily Bugle. And it never quite struck me that she was probably the same age as Spider-Man until this movie.
Yeah, no, I feel like the kid part of it, they did really well. Tom Holland does great.
Yeah, for
as
5 years younger than he actually is.
Yeah, but he doesn't look it, and he doesn't act it.
Yeah.
No, he does look it. He does look younger.
He
That's
looks...
what I mean. Yes.
Yeah.
He looks younger than he is. So does Andrew Garfield. That guy's like 30 or something. But yeah, they kind of brought together the more nerdy aspects from the Sam Raimi films of Peter Parker and the Spider-Man aspects of the Amazing Spider-Man films. And they brought them together to make pretty much the perfect cinematic Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I feel like that little... Although, I feel like the more condensed version we got in Civil War was almost better than this whole version. I think, but because it was such a small role, it had more chance to leave more of an impact.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's good to see Spider-Man exploring his abilities, because he wouldn't be the insanely popular character he is today if he didn't have all these abilities. And I feel like everything was so lightly touched on in Civil War. You know, they hinted at super strength when he caught the metal hand, something that no one else in the MCU has done yet. Because, you know, he is one of the strongest characters in the MCU. But yeah, this movie really gave more of a chance to explore the powers and all the cool stuff in the suit as well.
I feel like making... I mean, I believe it's in the trailers. The suit is basically Iron Man. It's like Iron Man spandex, which I was not a fan of. I feel it fit the theme of the movie, which was like, you know, you have to be good without all the gadgets. Like, if you're no good without the gadgets, then you're no good with the gadgets. But at the same time, I felt there was, like, you know, he's got an AI to talk to and a heads-up display, and I mean, even the Vulture has that. And I feel like they've made so much money off Iron Man doing that stuff that they just kind of, like, you could have made it without that stuff. He could have had different gadgets and stuff, but, you know, he didn't need an AI to talk, but at the same time, that him having conversations with the AI was some of the best scenes in the film.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's a sequence in the film, because he's got something like 500 options or whatever for his different webs. And there's a sequence in the film where he's trapped in a building and, you know, he's bored, so he's just testing out all this stuff. And it seems to go on forever. And he's like, you know, how long has it been? And the voices are like, oh, it's been like 37 minutes, which was pretty good. There's a lot of funny jokes in it. Some of them less so. Like they take the easy road for comedy rather than actually thinking of a funny joke. But yeah, I still think the best part of the film is when he loses the suit and he doesn't go back to being Spider-Man straight away, and when he's just being a kid and he's like gone, and they do that. I think they did that in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I don't know, but it's basically an essential for Marvel superheroes
it's like
at this
you
point.
got to lose your suit at some point and go back to normal, but it felt so much more genuine this time around.
And then that's when the whole Michael Keaton thing comes into it, being the dad. Because it really thrusts him back into the Spider-Man role in a very natural way. Rather than just, you know, I feel I have to, or something.
I mean, I feel like now that you mentioned that, it kind of works.
Yeah.
With him coming back. Yeah, that does make sense. Not gonna lie, I do prefer his old suit over his new one. His old
hoodie suit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that was shown in... Yeah, that was in Civil War. When Spider-Man first appears. I
just like the visuals of it. I feel like it's got that more down-to-earth idea rather than the high-tech. Although he lost his web shooter at one point. He had 2 of them. I don't know why he never grabbed the second one.
Yeah, there's a couple of weird moments with what he does and doesn't have available to him, but for the most part, it's free of plot holes. It's a solid movie.
Yeah.
You know what else was a solid movie, but not much more? Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. What do you mean much more? It was less. It was less. I mean, if you're going to watch a superhero movie this year, watch Spider-Man. It's more enjoyable.
Maybe Thor.
Have you seen Wonder Woman, Joe?
I have not.
You have not? Are you planning on seeing it?
I don't know. Like, just from the trailers, it looks too corny to watch, like too predictable. The storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, to some degree it takes a lot of the cliches from the last 10, 20 years of superhero films.
Definitely.
And just pushes it, but there are some...
I mean, it does them well. I'll give it that. It does the cliches well. It's the definition of a watchable film.
Yeah.
There's nothing particularly bad about it, nothing particularly good about it either.
It's got some incredible sequences.
I mean, there's this good scene in the
No Man's
Land. That's the one. You know, it's the scene that basically is the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
You know, she's getting shot and she's deflecting bullets and hiding behind her shield and all that. It's quite obvious why they put it in the trailer, because it's really the only scene that stands out in the whole film.
Wow.
And there's actually a whole video essay about how the directors use colour so effectively. So at the start, everything is beautiful and
they're on
colourful.
Themyscira.
Yeah.
That's Wonder Woman's home planet island.
Home island,
Home
yeah.
island.
And then she reaches the city,
The
London.
world of man, which is the standard
Grey.
DC colour scheme.
Yes.
Is this the every frame of painting one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so as she goes through, you know, she rescues a town, and the colour kind of comes back into it. It's
The colour, like in No Man's Land, she is the colour. Her suit is red,
almost
and
like
yellow.
a flag.
Yeah, like a flag in this grey, like it's the
Grey,
greyest
brown.
environment in the entire movie.
Yeah,
And so she stands out like a sore thumb, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful sequence.
yeah.
And then when she saves the town, the orange hues
Yeah,
of...
I mean, it's something that you don't notice when you watch the movie, or at
Yeah.
least I didn't anyway, but you still kind of feel it.
Yeah.
But it had another villain problem, and I don't think there's any superhero movies that didn't have a villain problem, which is it showed us a villain that wasn't the villain, and then gave us a villain that we didn't need. So the whole point is she thinks that there's this German scientist, and we're getting into spoilers here, but you'll be able to see this coming if you've seen any superhero movie in the past century.
Yeah.
So there's this German general who's like one of the head German generals, and he wants the war to keep going because he believes he's got a weapon. Yeah, he believes he's got a weapon that can win it. And Wonder Woman believes that he's like the human incarnation of Ares, who is the Greek god of war. And she believes that Ares has corrupted man so that they're fighting each other. And if she kills Ares, man will be all, happy again, and they'll just all be best buds. So eventually there's this red herring where he's got this gas that makes him really strong, which kind of came out of nowhere. It just makes no sense. And it's obviously, it serves no purpose other than to make you think
he's the god of war.
He's the god of war. And so eventually she confronts him and kills him. And of course, he's just a guy. And then Ares comes in. I won't reveal who Ares is because, then we're going too much into spoilers. But Ares then appears and he's like, I didn't do this. I just kind of whispered in people's ears. But at the same time, it's like, he didn't do it. But if I go up to somebody and say, somebody who's in a war and say, hey, you should make this weapon that will win you the war. For all intents and purposes, I've, helped them win the war. And I feel like what they should have done is they should have had her think that Ares was behind it, killed the guy, and found out that maybe, just maybe, mankind likes to kill each other occasionally. Rather than her thinking that everything is pure and it's just this one guy who is twisting everything.
So yeah, it leads into a pretty cool battle. Your typical, there's a floating thing in the air and she's got to
if you've seen a
Super
DC
Saiyan.
movie...
Yeah, she goes Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
That's the ending. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's worth spoiling because it's so terrible.
It's not great. But yeah, that's really it for recent superhero movies. Actually, I would recommend... I always forget about Guardians as a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Because it's so far removed from the other ones. So I'm not going to recommend you go see it as a superhero movie.
Yeah, I'd recommend you see it if you're into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Or
for
if
sure.
you like sci-fi. But if you want to go see a superhero movie, go see Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than Wonder Woman.
And if you want to see a good action movie, because action is kind of today's overarching theme, there was one that we saw in advance yesterday.
Yeah, I'm sure in advance. It comes out next week, next Thursday. Baby Driver. It's the new Edgar Wright film. You ever seen any Edgar Wright movies, Joe?
You'd have to familiarise me.
Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz.
Who is Edgar? Who's...
No, it's
He's the director and writer.
he's the director. What's their names?
okay.
Nick Frost and Simon Pegg.
He's done Hot Fuzz as well.
Yeah. Hot Fuzz is my personal favourite of his.
Scott Pilgrim, which Eamon doesn't like.
I'm not a fan of Scott Pilgrim.
It is stylistically a fantastic movie.
But yeah, Baby Driver.
Yeah.
If you like his films, definitely go check out Baby Driver. If you like good films, definitely go check out Baby Driver.
Yeah.
And if you just like being entertained, go check out Baby Driver. There's my little mini review for it. It's really good.
I don't know. Some people without sense of humour, they don't like his films just because it's crude.
This one's not.
Yeah, this one is.
There's not as much comedy in this one.
This is his first real serious film.
I don't know if I'd call it serious.
Oh wow.
It's not serious.
It's not serious,
but
it's less parody than the other ones.
Yeah, the other ones are cartoons brought to life.
Pretty much. This is more grounded, I suppose. It's a little difficult. So it's Baby. That's the name of the main character. He has tinnitus, so he's got the ringing in his ears, and he's a getaway driver. Kevin Spacey's like Lucky Charm getaway driver, and he's got one more job before he can be free and go run away with his girlfriend.
As usual.
But of course, as usual, now that I think about it, it's very by the numbers in terms of its plot. And as usual, he gets roped back in for one last job after his one last job.
Oh wow! How original!
And it's about him trying to get out of this life of crime.
Yeah.
But it's really the visuals, the sound, and the writing, which make it really good.
Yeah, the sound especially. The whole movie is a music video, basically. Because as the scenes play out, you've got all these sound effects, whether it's gunshots, whether it's dialogues from bits of people on the street talking, all in time with the music, playing out their own rhythms, and it would have taken hours upon hours to write, direct, choreograph, and there's certain parts where lyrics are appearing on the walls in graffiti, and it's all very artistic.
I think one of my favourite parts is the Tequila. Was that the name of the song during the shootout?
I think so.
There's a shootout, and he's listening because he listens to music to drown out the tinnitus, which is like the ringing in the ears, and he's listening to the song Tequila when a shootout happens.
Right.
And the actual music basically fades to nothing, but the gunshots and explosions kind of take place of the tunes and go along in time, and you're basically listening to the song played with guns, and then they fade out, and it's very well done. Great action scenes. Some of the driving scenes are some of the best. It puts Fast and Furious to shame.
Yeah.
Not in terms of scale.
I think I was grinning like an idiot during the first car chase.
Oh yeah. And speaking of the first one, you see the trailer and you see all these big fancy moments, and you're like, oh, that's usually they're like the last scene. Most of the best moments from the trailer are within the first third of the film. Which is good because there's you've still got stuff to look forward to. It's also it's one of the more original films that's been this level of quality in years.
And I was saying to someone else that both John Hamm and Jamie Foxx have major roles in it, and them and Kevin Spacey really own the screen. But it's good because we haven't seen, especially John Hamm and Jamie Foxx, we haven't seen them in much recently. We had Django in 2012 or something.
Wow, that was ages ago.
Yeah, and Mad Max, Mad Men?
Mad Men.
Wrapped up a few years ago, I think. So I don't know what else John Hamm's been in. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, I guess, but nothing major for either of them. And so it's great to see them in this grand return to cinema with Kevin Spacey, and you've got a couple of others. John Bernthal, who's the Punisher in the MCU.
I wish he was in it more.
Yeah.
I do like. He plays an excellent asshole.
Yeah, he was wasted in the film.
Yeah. I feel like anybody who could do a decent job in a movie could have taken that role.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey, though, top of the line. Every scene he is in, and it's the same with Jamie Foxx and John Hamm. Every scene they're in, it's like all the tension is on them.
Yeah, they exude power. And that's why I love watching House of Cards, because Kevin Spacey is in it. He exudes power, and his wife in that is also in Wonder Woman doing the exact same thing.
His wife?
His wife in House of Cards.
Oh, Kevin Spacey. Yep.
Yeah.
I get you.
She's the trainer who goes against the Queen to train up Wonder Woman. And yeah, they are both very powerful looking people.
Yeah. Speaking of power, and powerful looking people, one cannot go past John Wick. He is probably the most powerful man in cinema right now. You want action, you want power, you want people dying by the truckloads. I looked up the official kill count for the second movie.
Yeah.
It's something like 182 people.
That's phenomenal.
And I'm pretty sure once he starts, he doesn't stop.
That film was glamorous. It was.
That's another movie that you got to see at the cinema, along with Baby Driver.
See, out of that entire list, that's the only one I would watch. Just because I know the quality of that the last movie that came out. The first John Wick.
Well, if you like the first one,
the quality is there, and it's just worth watching.
Yeah, if you like the first one, the second one is a shoo-in. It's basically the best action scenes from the first one for an hour and a half.
And it's a direct continuation, and it really steps up the scale of everything in it.
Yeah. And if you ever want to see Keanu Reeves take out a couple of dudes with stationery, there you go. They teased it in the first one. They teased it at the start of this one. It's pretty great.
So that was a little while ago, that one. John
I
Wick
think
Chapter 2.
that's stopped showing at the cinemas now. But it should be coming out on DVD
DVDs
soon.
and Blu-rays,
Probably be able to find it online.
We don't condone that, by the way, unless you're using Google Play or
Netflix,
iTunes.
something like that.
Yeah.
Keep it legal, guys.
Yes.
Keep it legal. But until that comes out, there's lots of movies that are coming out of the cinemas soon. Many action movies. What are you planning to go see, Chris?
Well, I've got two in particular. Nothing left for this month, really. Spider-Man was my big one, and also Baby Driver. But next month I've got Atomic Blonde, which doesn't look like much more than your average spy.
Female John Wick.
Yeah, it's female John Wick, really.
Directed by the co-director of the first film.
Yeah. And so you've got Charlize Theron in the main role. And she is an absolute badass as, female John Wick. But it's set in the 50s or 60s and something. You've got John Goodman in it. You've got Toby Jones.
James McAvoy,
that chick from The Mummy, and
Sophia Botella.
Yeah, she's doing fantastically this year.
Yeah, she's doing well.
The Librarian.
The Librarian?
Was that the Librarian?
No, The Mummy. Have you seen?
No. The Librarian, the lady who plays the librarian in The Mummy.
No, she plays the Mummy in The Mummy.
New Mummy. Or she's the lady with the spiky legs in Kingsman.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, she's doing quite well for herself.
So she's in Atomic Blonde, and it really does look like a very sexual and fun and I don't know the word for it, but
gratuitous. It looks like a gratuitously entertaining film.
Yeah. And the other one I'm looking forward to, I think anyone who's heard of it is looking forward to it. It's called Hitman's Bodyguard. It stars Ryan Reynolds from Deadpool and Samuel L. Jackson, who is... what's his name?
Nick Fury?
Nick Fury. And these two in the main roles, one of them's a hitman, one of them is the best bodyguard in the world or something.
The best hitman in the world, best bodyguard in the world. I think he's taking him to trial.
Something like that. But it's an action comedy, which is, recently all the action comedies I've seen have been fantastic.
It's an action comedy without The Rock, which is rare.
But yeah, it looks really funny. It looks really fun. And you can't go wrong with those two actors. What are you watching?
What am I watching? I am definitely watching Terminator 2. They're re-releasing that in 3D. And I'm a big fan of Arnold, just in general. And particularly of the Terminator films. I really like the first one. I'm one of those people who think the first one is better. Not in terms of its action, but just in terms of it as an overall film. But the second one is definitely the one that has earned that cinematic...
Yeah, re-release. I guess.
It's like it's the bigger movie. It's the more explosive movie.
And I think that basically our entire row of friends who were there were pretty excited for that one.
I mean, they could have just put the words Terminator 2 Judgment Day 3D and played the theme, and I would be sold.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it takes.
The trailer said one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever, but I said one of the greatest movies
Definitely.
Have you seen that one, Joe?
Which one's this? The Terminator...
Terminator 2.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
I mean, has anybody not seen it?
Yeah, I don't think anyone...
I'm sure somebody
has.
has.
Dubbed like one of the top movies to see.
I feel like
which website I saw it in, but it sort of stayed at its rank for years.
Yeah, I think if anybody hasn't seen it, there's like an empty hole in their life.
Yeah,
and the
probably.
only thing that can fill it is Terminator 2.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah, he always comes back.
And there's one other one, a Jackie Chan.
The Foreigner, which is adapted by a book called The Chinaman. I've forgotten who it's by, and I saw the trailer and bought the book. That's how excited I am for this movie. It stars Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan. And I don't know a whole lot about what's going on. So I assume is the IRA bomb. There's a bomb in London which blows up Jackie Chan's daughter. Pierce Brosnan works in the government, and he used to, at some point in the past, work with the IRA. And Jackie Chan thinks that Pierce Brosnan can give him the names of the people who killed his daughters. And it basically looks like Jackie Chan meets Jason Bourne and Taken.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anybody who can do an action film well, it's Jackie Chan.
And Pierce Brosnan's in it, so you know the man can't do any wrong.
No, he's a great actor, and he's the kind of guy who can be in a terrible film, and you'll remember him and only him.
Yeah,
one of the few people who can out-act Liam Neeson. But yeah, it's a good, looks good.
It does. Pierce Brosnan, you was talking
about
that?
There's a film. Seraphim Falls, which is a western starring Liam Neeson and Pierce Brosnan. Pretty good. But yeah, Liam Neeson he's great.
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan, whole different level.
Okay. But yeah, Pierce Brosnan was in that ABBA film, Mamma Mia, and I've sat through that twice now, actually. Twice.
It's 200% more than I have.
Yeah. And he can't sing, like, at all. But he can act better than anyone else on the screen, and Colin Firth is in that movie.
Yeah, I think Colin Firth won an Oscar for The King's Speech.
Like,
or got nominated,
Yeah.
So
Pierce Brosnan almost saved Mamma Mia.
Almost?
Almost. There's no saving Mamma Mia.
I mean, that's like saying that the guy who fell off the back of the Titanic in that movie almost saved the ship from sinking.
Yeah. Well, Mamma Mia just needs a different writer. I feel like the cast was fantastic for that movie, but we're not here to talk about that.
No.
Joe, do you have any movies you're looking forward to?
I've been waiting for The Division to come out for quite some time.
The Division?
Yeah, The Division. Tom Clancy's The Division. It's in the making still.
So they're making
I'm not sure when it's releasing.
They're making a movie of that?
Might be 2018. Hey?
They're making a movie?
Yeah, they're making a movie. It's got... Who has it got?
Because Ubisoft... I know Ubisoft... Sorry.
There he is. Jake Gyllenhaal?
Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal.
His last name.
Yeah,
he's playing in it.
Yeah.
Jessica Chastain. When's it release? We've got...
I know that...
the information got updated in January this year. That's the last time the information got updated on IMBD.
Yeah.
Sounds like progress for a movie game. A game movie, sorry.
An Ubisoft game movie.
Yeah, Ubisoft have been trying to release their own little cinematic universe with Watch Dogs and
Assassin's Creed. Let's not talk about Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I actually didn't mind Assassin's Creed, but then again, I didn't follow the storyline a whole lot. It was more so the gameplay and stuff like that. Then again, I didn't play, I haven't played that in about 7 years.
but have you seen the movie?
I've seen the movie. I thought the movie was great with the action and everything like that. Storyline, probably not on par with what...
I think you're in a minority here. Chris walked out.
Yeah, I actually walked out of that
film.
film.
I managed to sit through it.
Which part didn't you like? Was it everything?
Pretty much.
Wow.
I thought some of the action scenes back in the past were good, but outside of that, I just couldn't. There was nothing in that film that made me say, "Hey, maybe this franchise will go somewhere."
Yeah, I felt it was very inconsistent as well. I couldn't keep up with what was going on in the past at all.
Okay.
I don't know. It was a long time ago, and I have kind of repressed that memory. Although, who's the old guy?
Jeremy Irons?
Jeremy Irons is always brilliant.
Oh yeah, he's... Even when he's bad, he's still good. But yeah, he's always so over the top. Not great, but you liked it. There's always that one person. There's always...
Yeah, I didn't mind it.
I
thought it was pretty good.
I saw a quote the other day, which I've forgotten exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of, every movie is someone's favourite movie. So, there's always that movie that somebody hates, but somebody else thinks is pretty good. So I guess that's Assassin's Creed. But speaking of movies that we like, and trying to stay within that action theme, what are some of our favourite action movies that we haven't mentioned here today?
I'll go first. One of my favourites, and I'm really excited because we've got a sequel coming out later this year, is Kingsman. And I already talked a little bit about Colin Firth, and he's fantastic in that. And I kind of felt like I was watching Kingsman again yesterday with Baby Driver, because the main cast member could basically be replaced with the main cast member from Kingsman.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kingsman, for those of you who haven't seen it, is this fantastic spy action comedy, or lighter on the comedy, but still.
It's more parody than comedy.
More parody,
but not like out and out parody.
Yeah, it's not
mockery almost.
Epic movie. Yeah, it's homage to the Bond films.
Homage. But a cruel homage.
Yeah. And they feel like they have to remind you at every turn that it's not a Bond film.
It's
but
not
anyway,
one of those movies.
It's still fantastic and has actually some of the best action sequences in all of cinema. And I don't feel like any regret in saying that.
I mean, it's got pretty good. I'm not a fan. I like the action. I'm not a fan of the way it's shot. I feel like that weird, shaky, steady cam stuff is not ideal. I mean, it works for the setting, but they feel like it was a bit too much.
Yeah, it was experimental.
That's for sure. I feel like that whole movie was experimental, though. Like, people's heads exploded in all the colours of the rainbows.
Yeah.
That's not experimental. I don't know what is.
So, yeah, the main plot was some tacky thing with Samuel L. Jackson as a mediocre villain. But that
one of the best scenes in the film involves McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So, if you haven't seen that, I absolutely recommend it, of course.
I mean, I'll recommend it as well. There's nothing wrong with it.
Number 2, Golden Circle, comes out in October, I think.
September, they moved it forward.
That's right. Which is not a good sign, but I'm still holding out.
It's a good time for you.
Hopes.
It's sooner.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favourite action movies, The Running Man. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm a big fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger for a long time. And The Running Man is basically the Hunger Games. Where, there's a televised game show where people kill each other. And, I mean, isn't that the Hunger Games?
Yeah, or Game 2 Winter, which is a currently running Hunger Games.
They don't kill anybody in that. It's been made illegal.
Yeah, it's illegal, but it's allowed by the game producers. It's
not allowed anymore.
Oh.
But that's a different topic.
Okay.
It's a different topic for another time. But yeah, so basically, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a cop who refuses to fire on a crowd of protesters from a helicopter, and the dystopic government of the future locks him up and puts him in this show called The Running Man, where criminals essentially have to fight against 3 bosses. It's basically a video game. So he goes into this dungeon and he has to fight a set number of bosses before he gets out. And he's got his lady friend with him, and there's a couple of other guys who got locked away with him that he's made friends with. And I mean, the highlights of the film are these boss fights, which is in essence what they are. The first one is this big Mongolian guy who is like ice hockey. So he's got a razor sharp hockey stick, and he's got like exploding hockey pucks and stuff. And so, he's got like this little ice rink underground that he skates around on and fights people on. There's a guy who's got like flamethrowers. Guy who shoots he makes finger guns, shoots electricity out. There's a guy with a chainsaw. It's just so nuts. Like, that's really the only way to describe it. It is a nuts film. Arnold is great. It's got one of the greatest lines in action film history. There's a guy, the producer of the show wants him to sign a contract, because of course he does, so he can come back for reruns. And Arnold pulls the camera down and he says, "I'm going to make you eat that contract, but I hope you leave some room, because I'm going to ram my fist into your stomach and break your goddamn spine." And if that is not a great line, and it's delivered, "I'm going to ram my fist into your stomach and break your goddamn spine." And it's just, it comes out of nowhere, and it is just essence of Arnold. It's beautiful. Do you have any favourite action movies, Joe?
Well, one of my favourites is The Revenant.
Yeah.
With Leonardo DiCaprio. That's not 100%. I don't think it's 100% classified as action, but
no.
When I look up action, it comes up.
Yeah.
But I thought that was probably one of the most brilliant movies I've ever seen in my life.
It is quite
let
good.
Let alone being an action.
I mean, the opening action scene in that. Have you seen it, Chris?
The Revenant? No.
I've forgotten who it's by, but I think it's by the guy who did Birdman. Have you seen that?
Not yet. It's
okay.
on my list.
Well, it's shot to be like all one long take. It's not actually all one take, but it's supposed to look like that.
I've heard this.
And the opening sequence of The Revenant is a single shot long take of a battle between a bunch of fur traders and a bunch of Indians.
Okay.
And it is one of the most visceral, coolest action sequences ever put to film. It is very cool. I mean, even that sequence alone is worth watching the movie.
It's it was a brilliant movie. The cinematography is probably one of the best I've seen in any film.
It's a great looking movie. I mean, have you heard that they used all natural light?
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they would have tinkered it a little bit.
I think there's one scene where the fire kept going out, so they had to use studio lights. But every other scene in the film is shot with just the ambient light of the world, which is impressive to say the least.
Did you hear that the start of James Bond, the Spectre movie, was 3 takes edited nicely together to make it look like one?
I did not. I feel like it's cheating now.
It's still very...
But I mean, most of them are.
Yeah, and it's still very visually impressive. You can't tell at all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It'd be like when somebody walks in front of the camera or something.
Yeah, and one of them's where it passes through the wall to watch him out the window. But yeah, anyway, that's enough for favourites. Let's move on to a new segment. Well,
this whole podcast is new, so this is a new segment just in general.
Yeah. It's called Sequelitis.
It's one of 2 segments that will be alternating. The other one being Remakers, where we take a film, be it good or bad, and remake it. But Sequelitis is one where we take a film that either doesn't need a sequel, or a film that should have gotten a sequel and never got one, and we give it our sequel. And today we are tackling Spider-Man. Nothing in particular, any Spider-Man sequel. So be it Sam Raimi, The Amazing Spider-Mans, or this new Spider-Man Homecoming. You want to go first, or shall I?
Well, I just want to say, Joe, this is your time to have a think about what you want to pitch. You can go first.
I'll go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a comic book storyline called what's it called?
The Gauntlet.
The Gauntlet and the Grim Hunt, which is essentially where Peter Parker fights a bunch of villains consecutively. It's not like a great plot or something. He just happens to fight them all really close together. And my sequel is a sequel to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, inspired by that. It takes place a couple years after, he's killed his girlfriend, or, not failed to save her, shall we say. He's been betrayed by his best friend. This happened in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So now he's more serious. He's not like that happy, jokey Spider-Man from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's more focused on getting his job done. And there's a group of people who are working to stop him. And they're made up of a bunch of supervillains, but it's not the Sinister Six. And they're led by Harry Osborn, who is, of course, not quite the Green Goblin. And essentially the idea of the film is they want to kill Spider-Man to get revenge, so they send groups of villains after him. So it's Electro and the Rhino, you've got the Lizard, Scorpion, Doc Ock and the Vulture, and they all kind of fight him one after the other. And he's slowly working his way from wherever he is in New York over to where Harry is to find out why all these guys are attacking him. And he's kind of like again a series of boss fights. He's slowly working his way up the ladder of these supervillains until he eventually reaches Harry Osborn, and he confronts him, and he doesn't fight him because he had the disease or whatever. So he's dying, and that's from the second one. He confronts him, and Harry's like, I'm not going to fight you because clearly I'm not going to win, but also we used to be friends. And Spider-Man's like, well, I ain't going to fight you because, there's no reason to me and no reason for me to fight you. The cops are on their way, and he webs out the window. And as he's swinging away, Harry says to himself, I'm not going to kill you, but I found somebody who can. And we cut to, Spider-Man swinging through the city. There's a little red dot on him that he doesn't notice. And we slowly track this red dot from Spider-Man across the city, like a big tracking shot through the cities and stuff, over this high-powered sniper rifle. Behind it, Kraven the Hunter.
Played by Will Smith.
Not played by Will Smith. Played by Sharlto Copley.
Oh,
who
wow.
You might know from District 9, Elysium. He's one of my favourite actors. I think he would make a great Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's the end of the film. It ends with the setup for one of the greatest Spider-Man villains.
Spider-Man stories of all time. Kraven's Last Hunt.
That's my Spider-Man sequel. What's your Spider-Man sequel, Chris?
Well, I really wanted to have a go at making a sequel to this Spider-Man Homecoming. So I haven't really had a chance to think about it before today. But I really want it to be directed and written by the same person who did Homecoming, because I want the same vibes. I want it to be a continuation. And I can't think of anyone else who would do a particularly fantastic Spider-Man movie that would fit in this Marvel universe. So I'm going to completely forget about Infinity War as well, because I have no idea what's going on with that.
Fair enough.
So you could go with Doc Ock, who is fantastic on screen, or one of these villains from his all-time top 3 arch enemies. But I think that would really detract, and we've seen a lot of them already, and I want someone new on screen because it worked well for the Shocker and the Vulture.
I mean, the Shocker wasn't even really a villain, it was just a nickname.
Yeah, but the Shock Gauntlets are the villain, really.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic.
They were very cool.
In this movie. So, you could bring Shocker back or something as a tie-over.
Back.
I don't want the Vulture back. He's had his...
He's had his shot. He's done.
Yeah. But...
Save him for the Sinister Six.
The thing with Shocker is that all he's got is the Shock Gauntlets. So, if you step up the character, then he's great to tie the film over to the last one.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I just want someone completely new. Someone like Mysterio, who is a serious threat, but a new face to the cinematic universe.
It would also be an interesting villain for him to fight, because it's not a physical threat.
Yeah. And so it's completely new to Peter Parker. It lets him explore his universe more. It's kind of a road to the Avengers, because at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, spoilers, he turns down the job at the Avengers so he can focus on improving himself.
So he can be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah, that too. So yeah, a Mysterio movie where he's trying to learn how to Spider-Man, as he already was in Spider-Man Homecoming. And I think that would go well with a tie-in with someone else, Ant-Man or Doctor Strange. But
I could definitely see tying with Doctor Strange with Mysterio.
With Mysterio, because I think they've done that before, in fact, in the comics.
Yeah.
And Mysterio, a lot of the time, can't be seen properly. There's either smoke or there's...
a fishbowl on his head.
A fishbowl on his head, or he's disappeared somehow.
Yeah.
He's a mystical villain, really, even though it's all illusions.
He's mystical with a name like Mysterio? Get out of here, man.
So I feel like as long as Doctor Strange isn't stealing the spotlight, he would be phenomenal. And I'd love to see Tom Holland acting alongside, Benedict Cumberbatch. So yeah, something that plays with what it's got available to it.
Yeah.
Something that isn't gonna, we've already had Spider-Man throw away the suit. We don't want to see that. We've already had Spider-Man go through all the drama of losing Gwen Stacy. We don't want to see that. We just want to see Spider-Man be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you were going for with your pitch as well.
Yeah, mine's more of like just an action movie, straight up action.
But there is one absolute must-have for my movie. Yeah? If I'm gonna make a Spider-Man movie, if I'm gonna make a Spider-Man movie, I want J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, who's playing him though?
J.K. Simmons, obviously.
Best casting on the planet.
Best casting ever.
That's
even though he's in the DC movies at the moment, I'm sure he could make an appearance.
I'm sure there wouldn't be any legal trouble.
And you could have the photography stuff back in it, just as long as they.
Well, I almost thought they were doing that. With him recording all the video and stuff. Felt like they were going somewhere with that.
Yeah, and Betty Brant is already in the movies, and she's a star.
Although I feel like it would take a while to reach that point, considering he's still a few years left in high school at the moment.
This movie won't be happening for ages, so it could be after Infinity War.
Yeah.
Considering they won't destroy the universe.
I feel like mentioning Infinity War is a good thing, because especially for a character like Spider-Man, when so many of his villains are ground level.
Yeah.
And we know he's in Infinity War Part 1. I imagine he's in Part 2 as well. After you beat a villain like Thanos, how do you go fight the Green Goblin?
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be a problem they're going to face with all of their characters. Because once you beat one of the strongest characters in comic books as a whole, there's nowhere you can really go in terms of... that was probably my biggest problem in this film, was Spider-Man could have been shot point blank range with a shotgun, and I wouldn't have cared, because you already know he's in the next movie.
Yeah.
So there's not really any... but I feel like at the same time, after Infinity War, because we don't know what happens, things could change. Characters could die. They could kill him off in Infinity War and bring in Miles Morales.
Yeah. Well, that would be interesting as well. But anyway, with my story, I think it's best to just ignore the existence of Infinity War. Say everyone's out of high school. Betty Brant gets a job at the Daily Bugle. So does Peter Parker. And they explore maybe that love story, maybe MJ, because she's in the films now. But really the focus is on Peter Parker being Spider-Man.
Yeah. It
doesn't have to all be Spider-Man, but it can be, Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Anyway, I've said the word Spider-Man enough. Joe, it's your turn.
Here's a challenge. Take a drink every time Chris says Spider-Man. If you're still alive by the end of the podcast, give yourself a high five and go to the nearest doctor. Quickly go, you're going to die.
Yeah. Joe, do you have a pitch?
for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I'm probably not that well versed in the universe to even come up with a new plot line for it. Especially since I haven't seen the latest film. I'm probably I don't even remember the films that strongly, you know. I remember the first and second. But yeah, I couldn't really give you a sequel, a strong sequel anyway.
Well, how's this for an on-the-spot challenge? We're kind of crossing over into remakers territory a little bit, but how would you cast, and who would direct or write your perfect Spider-Man film?
Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, wow.
Who plays... Is Spider-Man played by Samuel L. Jackson?
Miles.
That would be a good film. Can you imagine that?
Old man Spider-Man?
Bloody a realistic superhero movie. You know, blood, guts, everything. You've got the lot.
I mean, you got
know,
Quentin
even if it's not
Tarantino,
too
you've got blood and guts.
You know, you've got a lot of guts to it. So,
Yeah.
You know, you can imagine all of the villains sort of coming together slowly in it. And having a massacre going on.
I'm just envisioning like that Kill Bill, but with Spider-Man, and he's just like straight up just murdering
I reckon,
people.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino could do a good superhero film. You know, have a few jokes to it. Obviously, it'd be a laugh to watch because it wouldn't be made to be so serious. But, it'd be so entertaining.
Maybe Spider-Man could be a Ryan Gosling type. You know, you've got to shave Ryan Gosling if he's going to be Spider-Man, but...
Well, I perceive an older Spider-Man.
Like a properly old Spider-Man, because then you could have Roger Moore. Oh no, he's dead.
Roger Moore?
You know, one of these Bonds, not Quentin.
Kurt Russell. I feel like Quentin Tarantino, and I mean, he's never going to do a superhero movie, at least not a licensed one.
No.
Because the guy likes to do his own stuff too much. He has said in the past that he would like to do a superhero movie, and I know he, as a person, likes Superman, but I don't think he'd ever do a licensed superhero movie. But I would love to see it. Other things I would love to see is this podcast coming to an end, which it is because we're about to be kicked out.
Yeah.
So now is as good a time to end as any. If any of you listeners out there have your own Spider-Man sequels or remakes, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Just give us your weirdest ones, your coolest ones, any comic book stories you'd want to see adapted. Let us know what you thought of Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming, that's what it's called.
Or Baby Driver for
or
that
Baby
matter.
Driver. I mean, you won't have seen it yet. That comes out next week. But when you do see it, let us know. It's very cool. And let us know what your favourite action movie is, because we like action here at The Last Reviewer. And we hope you do too. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
We'll have links to Joe's...
You're most welcome.
We'll put some links to
Joe's Twitter and GSR down the
put
bottom.
some links down there so you can go check that out. It's been great first podcast.
Yeah.
Have fun and tune in next time where we will be talking emus and warfare.
Yeah.
Catch you around.
See ya.